Patti worked to ensure her husband's legacy and that he would not be forgotten. It was actually until her dying days that she worked on his legacy and worked to ensure that he would not be forgotten as one of the great abstract expressionism artists. Hi, this is Anita from 5 Minutes with Art, where in 5 minutes we teach you or we discover something together about art. Today I want to talk about women, and in particular the women behind many of the great men or great artists. Many times when we hear about these great artists, we don't really think about sometimes the women that were there, right there with them the whole way, who actually sacrificed a lot so that they could become a great artist. A great example of this, of somebody who made an artist great, of course, is Johanna Van Gogh. And it's really because of her and her great insight into keeping Vincent van Gogh's paintings and the way she would strategically sell them, and just her great insight into his works of art and how this was such a great works of art that she is really the one person who made Vincent van Gogh become as popular as he is today. When Vincent van Gogh died, and then 6 months later, her husband Theo died, and she had hundreds of these paintings. She could have just said, I've had enough, and just, kind of just rid of them or whatever, but she didn't. She kept them, and she understood, what great paintings there were. And it was actually her son, who was actually named Vincent van Gogh, who helps found the Van Gogh Museum in Holland. And so we really owe it to the Van Gogh family, who helped ensure that Vincent van Gogh's legacy would continue and we could see his great works of art. And another one that's also a great story that I recently heard about was Patricia Steele. And she was married to Clifford Steele, who was the great abstract expressionism artist. She happened to actually be his second wife. And she met him when he was a teacher, when he was teaching at the University in Pullman, Washington. And she became very enthralled with him, that she sort of, gave up her artistic career to sort of follow him. And at the time, Clifford Steele was married, and he had 2 children by his first wife. He was also 16 years her senior. But she decided that she would stop pursuing her career and her education in fine arts. So she quit school and followed him to San Francisco, and then she later followed him, on to New York City. It wasn't until 1957, when Clifford Steele was finally divorced from his first wife, that they got married. And it was with her that they moved, to Maryland, where they bought this old farmhouse together, and he would paint his great paintings out there, in this barn that he had. Patricia, in fact, it was Clifford Steele's daughter, Diana, who basically said this of Patti. So she devoted her life to his work and to his art. She provided a comfortable home so he could concentrate and paint. So literally, she devoted her whole life to his art and to ensure that he would be able to become this great artist. It was actually, he died it was in the 1980s, and so for 20 years, she kept this art in her home there. And in his will, in Clifford Steele's will, it said that that his art should not be sold, and instead it, should go to some kind of place or some city that would want to be able to, properly display it. So it was actually Patti Steele who started negotiating with cities around the world. I guess there's 25 cities or so that would try to negotiate with her. People tried to get art from her, and she was very particular in exactly what she wanted to do. And so it was finally that she settled on the city of Denver that agreed to open a Clifford Steele Museum. And the Clifford Steele Museum didn't open until after her death. She died in 2005, and so it was right before her death that she was able to negotiate this museum. And actually, it was until she died in 2005 at the age of 85 that Patti worked to ensure her husband's legacy and that he would not be forgotten. It was actually until her dying days that she worked on his legacy and worked to ensure that he would not be forgotten as one of the great abstract expressionism artists. I think this really tells a great story about some of the women behind some of these great men. And if you'd like to learn and discover more, we'll put some links below in our podcast, one about Johanna Van Gogh and Vincent Van Gogh, and one about Patti Steele and Clifford Steele. This is Anita from 5 Minutes with Art. Thank you so much for listening. And if you have any questions or comments, we'd love to hear from you. And thank you for our production crew, especially Rico, for helping to make this podcast possible.